Hi, today we're going back to using just the programming in CodeHS. We'll be doing 6.1.5 black and white squares. In this program, what we are trying to do is write a program that has Tracy draw a line of black and white squares. Your code should draw 6 squares in a line in the middle of the canvas, have every other square filled in based on the value of a variable being even or odd. And it gives us some hints. A white square is the same as a square that is not filled in, which means a black square is a square that is filled in. And the modulus operator will be a big help with this code. So it wants us to use the modulus operator here, which is when we use the percent sign. So first of all, I'm going to start off this program by setting my speed to 0. Now we're going to kind of work on top-down design. Now I know I'm going to be drawing 6 squares. So I want to be able to draw that square. So, well, squares are pretty easy. It's going to be 4i in range 4 because squares have 4 sides. And this is the kind of the point where we get to decide how big we want our squares to be. Now, there is no requirement to how big our squares are or how small our squares are, but we do want to make sure that all of them are able to fit on the screen. So I'm going to say forward 15. I'm going to make all sides of my square be 15. And then that's going to require a left 90. And that should do our shape. So let me go see how this looks. Boom, I have my square. Now, I also know that each time I will be doing another square after that. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in here. I'm going to hit backspace so I'm no longer inside my loop. I'm going to hit forward 15. And when I do that, that's actually going to bring me to the right corner of that square. And that is where I'm going to leave it. Now, I have it drawing a square. I don't want to delete this. I want to save this for later. So I'm going to define it as a function. So define, we're going to call this square box. And then I'm going to tab everything over. I'm not using the space bar. I'm using tab. Now, for the next part of our assignment, it does want us to use a modulus operator. So that means I need to introduce our modulus operator variable. So I'm going to put square value equals 0. So that sets up our modulus operator. We want it to, when it's even, to do one thing, and when it's odd, to do another thing. So now we're going to take advantage of that. So first of all, how many squares are we going to draw? There's going to be 6. So our program is going to begin for I. Oh, wait, I've already used I. I'm using I for my square, so I'm going to change my variable for k in range 6 because there's going to be 6 squares. I want it to start with a pin down because that's usually how I like to start my loops, to make sure that that pin is down. Now, we want the color to be black. Well, the color is automatically black, so we don't need to set that. But what we do need to do is, before we draw the box, we need to do a begin fill if it is actually an even number. This is where we're going to introduce our modulus operator. So I will say if square underscore box modulus operator, or divided by 2, is equal to 0. That means if it has a remainder, or if it does not have a remainder, if 0 means the number does not have a remainder, then I want it to begin underscore fill. And then I'm going to hit enter backspace. This is going to bring me over to the left, because if the remainder does equal to 1, which means it does have a remainder, then I want it to skip that begin fill and go on to the next step. Well, that means I need to draw my square box. And it draws my square box. And then I need it to, if square underscore, I put square box. That should be square value. That would have been an issue in just a second. Value, percentage sign 2 equals 0. So again, if I do not have a remainder, that means if my number is even, I want it to n underscore fill, enter backspace. Then I'm going to do a pin up because I needed to get it ready to draw the next square, forward, and I'm going to say 15. Let's see how this looks. Up says I have an error on line 13. So my error is I've only been putting one equal sign. If we go back to the previous lesson, we know that whenever we're making something equal, we have to put two equal signs, or as I would say, absolutely equal to. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to put double equal signs for both of those. Let's run it again. Okay, so my error is I never told square value to increase. So right here after forward 15, I'm going to put square underscore value is now equal to square underscore value plus 1. Now when this program, after it runs the first box, it will then increase the value by 1. So now I should see a black square, white square, black square, white square. There it is. So I'm going to go to check my code. Sure enough, I drew 6 squares. I should have loops in my code, which I do. I have a loop for my square box, and I have a loop for my actual program. I should have a function in my code, which I do. I have the square box function. I should have an if statement in my code, which I do right here. I should use the modulus operator, which I did twice. And I should fill in 3 of my squares, which I did. Now, this program works. It's great. I can click save and I would be done in this scenario. But what I also notice is that my squares are kind of centered on the screen. So if I wanted to, I could actually start off with Tracy moving backwards and make it look more like my result world. So since I'm moving Tracy in order to get them to their starting position, I'm going to do a pin up. And then I'm going to move backward. Now I know I have 3 squares. So 3 squares, that'd be 3 times 15, which would be 45. Plus I have 2 spaces there, so that'd be another 15. So that'd be 45, 60, 75. So I'm going to say backwards 75. And then pin down. So now let's see what happens. There we go. So now I have it about where 3 squares are on the left of my center, 3 squares are on the right. I could continue fixing the spaces in between because it does look like the spaces are smaller. But what we're finally getting to is we do have all of our green checks. We can work on this program all day and get it to be where it's exactly like the result world, but we met the goal of what CodeHS wants us to do. So that is 5.1.5 black and white squares. Good luck.